Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL Podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly.
Well, welcome back to the DCL Podcast, your podcast to cruise a little smarter. I am your host, Lake, and I am once again joined by my co-host, Christy. Christy, how are we today?
Great. How are you, Lake?
I am doing pretty well. Good, productive day today.
Excellent.
Yes.
Me too.
Good. We love productive days, especially
Yes.
for a Monday.
Absolutely. We're starting the week off strong.
Well, I started my Monday with a day off, so
I know. I wasn't going to say that.
can't get much stronger than that.
It's the perfect way to start your week.
But we have a fun show ahead of us. We are talking about a sailing on the newest ship in the Disney fleet. What ship is that, Christy?
The beautiful Disney Wish.
Yes, I love the Disney Wish.
She's so gorgeous.
She is, absolutely. I keep thinking about all the ships I haven't been on in a while. It's like, I need to get back on that one. I need to get back on that one. But I really do love the Wish. I like what they did with it. To talk about the Wish today, we are going to be bringing on our guest, Chris. Chris, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Welcome to the show. Well, why don't you start by giving us a little bit of your Disney cruising background?
Okay, so Disney background will be, I had a very traumatic first trip to Walt Disney World in 1994.
Which I just did the math on, was 30 years ago. It came up 30. That is wrong on so many levels. One of which is that wasn't born yet, or he was born in that year.
That is my birth year.
That I graduated high school the year after that. So all of those things are wrong.
We can still pretend it was 20 or 10. It's okay.
Wasn't it?
Yeah. It's perfectly fine. The traumatic experience was I went with my grandmother and my 5-year-old cousin. And I was really there to babysit my 5-year-old cousin. So I was a teenager, and babysitting my 5-year-old cousin wasn't quite everything I wanted it to be on a trip to Disney World. So after the first day, my grandmother realized my cousin wouldn't eat any of the food he ordered. So her solution was I no longer got to order food, and I got to eat his leftover pizza. So when my parents started to take my niece and nephews when they were born and were like, hey, do you want to go Walt Disney World? I was like, no, I'm good. So fast forward to we have our own kids. We go with our son in 2015. So he's 3, not quite to 4 yet. And we just had the magical time. It was just so great. Just completely different than that experience I had as a teenager. And we were hooked. So my dad had looked at DVC and being involved with other timeshares at other family. I was like, no. And then I was like, well, let's look at this. So we ended up buying DVC in 2016. So we've been very regular to the world of Disney World since 2015 on. So we've had DVC membership, annual passes, all the fun. We finally ventured into cruising in 2022. Yeah, we did a sailing on the Dream, and that was kind of my first cruise ever, our kids' first cruise ever. And we were hooked immediately. It was just this is fantastic. They still had kind of the COVID restrictions going on in 2022. So it gave a very false sense of what cruising could be because, the ship was maybe 60% capacity. We've done 2 other sailings on the Wish now, and then we've done one on Royal Caribbean. All of our itineraries have been very adventurous. We've done the lovely Port Canaveral to Nassau to Private Island to, if it's a 4-night, a day at sea. So that's been our 4 cruises have all been kind of the Groundhog Day cruise, so to speak, of that. We've enjoyed it so far.
And it really is easy with kids and littler kids, right? So it's just convenient, and you have your beach days, great ship. So yeah, it's a good itinerary for a family.
Yeah, it's been great. So we have a son that's 12 and a daughter that's now 7. So they've had different experiences being in the kids clubs together. And then on this most recent sailing on the Wish, he did a little bit in Edge. We'll talk about that, I'm sure, through the podcast, because we had a little bit of a twist and on our sailing to add some fun and adventure on the last day. So we'll talk about that. And then for our daughter, it was kind of her first time to go and really be on her own in the kids club since he was gone to Edge. So just the Disney service that you expect was just still top notch. So we loved it. And then this sailing that we're going to be talking about, both of my parents joined us for this one. So they will both be 70 this year. My dad, this was his first cruise. My mom, this ended up being her third cruise. She's done 2 with us, and then she did a week-long sailing with my sister and niece with Norwegian sailing out of Texas, and they did a 1-week cruise kind of down through the south of Mexico.
All right, awesome. Well, why don't we start with how did we get to the port, and did we do any pre or post days in Walt Disney World?
Yeah, so we are in North Carolina. So for cruises, we typically drive down since we can just have control of the vehicle, control the timeline of getting there. So we got in 2 days ahead of time. We used our DVC membership, stayed at Animal Kingdom Lodge. We let our annual passes lapse this year, so we didn't do any parks. So we're going to see how park withdrawal goes. But we've got some fun stuff lined up later this year that we think will kind of help negate that pain. But so this was our first ever resort stay. Just no parks, just hanging out at the resort. And we had a great time. The bartender we were at Kidani Village. So whatever the little quick services at Kidani Village, the bartender there was fantastic. She used to be a waitress over at 50's Primetime. So she was doing the cousins, and she, was just great, just fantastic. So over by the pool. Okay. Yeah, the poolside bar. The bartender there she was just great. So, she recommended a really good drink for us. It was a play on Hakuna Matata, but it's a rum-based pina colada with African rum, African white cream mixed in. It was great. So sneak over there, get that. You won't be disappointed. So that was our pre-cruise trip. We just had kind of 2 days at the resort. We did have a water park pass. So we did go over to Typhoon Lagoon because we did buy the limited season pass over to Typhoon Lagoon. So, in February we went to Blizzard Beach, and then we went back to Typhoon Lagoon. So we did hang out at Typhoon Lagoon for a day, and it was not too bad that day.
All right. Well, what an perfect resort for a resort-only stay. I would say probably in my top 3 resorts if you were going to pick one and just hang out. I mean, you get a whole savannah with it.
Right.
Yeah. What other resort do you get a giraffe?
Not many.
With your stay? No. Really not many.
We spend 2 days at Animal Kingdom Lodge, and then we drive our car down to Port Canaveral. How was the terminal situation there for you guys?
It was great. I think this was probably the smoothest we've had getting into the terminal. So we had 2 port arrival times. 4 of us had 12. The other 2 had 12:15. So we're okay. We aim to get there 11:45-ish. Get parked, get everybody to the bathroom, get through. It should all work out. So we rolled in pretty much around that time, dropped off luggage, got parked. It was so smooth. Nice. Probably the smoothest we've had. And we haven't really ever had a bad experience there. It was easy. By the time they checked us in at the first kiosk there to get, into security, they were already going over the announcement saying all groups could board. So it really didn't matter that we had the slight variation on those boarding passes, because by the time we got in, they'd already said, hey, everybody can board. So that went smooth. Security went smooth. Then we could just kind of almost basically walk on. We detoured to go do the photos before to get on. But if we didn't want to do that, we pretty much could have just walked straight through that line. There was no one there right then. So
now that you have a couple of cruises under your belt, you probably have a pretty set cruise ship arrival pattern. What does your family like to do when you first get on board?
We go to the sit-down restaurant.
Team sit down. Woo!
Yes. The first sailing we ever did on the Dream, we didn't go to Cabanas at all. Never went there. We just did sit down for everything. And then for the Wish, both of our Wish sailings, we've done Marceline one morning, but then typically we just do whatever restaurant's open for breakfast too. So we are definitely team sit down.
Lake, what are you? You nodded, but what are you when you board a ship?
I'm team sit down.
Yes.
I love to do the sit down when we first board.
A proper meal.
It's just usually nice and
civilized.
Quiet.
And the welcome aboard Sunday.
I have gotten that Sunday.
I don't think I've ever had the welcome aboard Sunday. All right. But I like team sit down. So nice lunch.
Nice lunch. We were in Arendelle, so lunch was fantastic. Surprisingly enough, we seem to be one of the later groups coming in for lunch. There weren't a lot of groups that really came in after us, which surprised me. But, we were still probably there about 12:30, 12:45 at the latest. So,
well, that's great. So then by the time you were done with lunch, were your rooms ready?
Yes, the cabins were ready.
And what type of cabins did you all book?
For my family of 4, we had the extended family veranda stateroom.
So you had a cabin that could have potentially slept 5.
Yes.
Or had the space for it.
Yes. And then my parents had a accessible veranda stateroom.
Okay, so did they have a scooter?
They don't have a scooter. My dad has vision issues. We wanted him to have kind of the flat bathroom space because he really just has peripheral vision and doesn't have center vision. We thought having a different configuration for the bathroom would be easier for him to just get in and out of, and he wouldn't have to worry about
and stepping up
transitions with that kind of vision issue. He has a hard time with color distinctions. So if things are the same color, he can't tell that it's a different depth. That worked out very well for what he needed to be able to move around and get to where he needed to do. It did have, I think just by default, it had the power assist doors.
Well, right, because they all do on Disney Cruise Line if it's accessible cabin.
Yeah. So if you have somebody with a scooter, that opening doors has been a concern. You won't really have that issue because those doors will power open. And even if you attempt to try to force them to close early, you're going to not be successful. It's strong. It's powerful. So
were you able to get cabins pretty close to each other with that?
We were 7,600 and they were 7,602. I think remember.
So you were still next to each other?
We were right next to each other. We didn't connect into theirs. But what was interesting is for that layout, the room that did connect to my parents was another handicap accessible room.
Interesting.
I think how they had to configure probably the layout in that handicap room for them wouldn't be conducive to trying to have that line up to your room.
What part of the ship was that? Was that forward, aft, mid?
We've only so far done midship. I don't know if I've been adventurous enough to be like, let's try forward or aft yet. We've been pretty content with midship and had good experiences. So we've just kind of stuck to midship.
After that, do we go up and do sail away party?
We did not do sail away party this time. We've done it on the previous ones. The kids kind of wanted to just chill in the room for a little bit. We really were kind of boring on embarkation day. We really just went to do the muster drill, kind of did a muster drill, hung out in the room. We do early dining. So then we just had a few refreshments before we went to dinner and got our stateroom doors decorated.
Do you unpack as a family of four, or do you live out of a suitcase for a 3-night cruise?
We went ahead and just unpacked. Everybody has their particular things they like to wear, so it's just easier that they can just know, oh, this is where my stuff is. And our daughter in particular, she likes to be very advocate for what she wants to wear. She's the 7-year-old, so she's the younger of the two. So she's, yeah, I'm not wearing that today. I want this. So if it was in a suitcase, it wouldn't stay in the suitcase. It'd all be on the floor. So we just unpack and she knows where she can go through and find her clothes. My son and I, we have our various Disney themed button-up shirts that we wear to dinner when we go to dinner. So those just get hung up in the closet and it works.
So with 2 older parents on board, I believe you said it was your father's first time on a cruise?
Yes.
What were they looking forward to or looking to get out of the sailing then?
My mom did a previous sailing on the Wish with us. My dad was hesitant to go, and then my mom had such a good time. I think he immediately regretted not going. So he was just looking forward to the food, since my mom had really hyped up the food and talked about how great everything she had was. So he really wanted to do the food. He was just excited to get the food. They had went on the Norwegian crew, and my sister had some critiques about that. My dad's response was, oh, Disney will be so much better. So my dad had already had it in his head that the Disney experience was going to be the end all be all. So he just wanted to go and enjoy and just see what the service was like. So that was kind of his expectation. My mom, since she'd been with us before, I mean, hers was just being able to hang out with the grandkids, know that, we'd have our themed dinners together where we'd all go to dinner and kind of have that time together with the grandkids and grandparents. So that was kind of what they were looking forward to.
So moving into the afternoon, I would guess that we are team early dining.
We are.
And where was our first rotational dining of our embarkation day?
We were at 1923. So we started out with
the best.
Yes.
How did everyone enjoy their meal?
Everybody had a great meal. I'll say our serving team, I think everybody in their section, I think we all pretty much arrived at about the same time. They were working very diligently to try to hit all of the tables. As we kind of looked around and we saw lots of various empty tables, all the ones that had tables were for our serving team. So they did good. But you could tell I don't think they were quite expecting pretty much all of us to just hit right at that time. And we don't try to get there early. We just try to be, okay, let's try to target being close to 5:45-ish. It just happened to be everybody in their section all just showed up at the same time. So they handled it well. And then the other nights, I think there was a little bit more staggering. So they were able to be a little bit more personable with us and spend a little bit more time where it wasn't.
Yeah, that first night, especially on a 3-night cruise, I just feel it's always just a little bit crazy anyway. They're getting adjusted to the current sections. They might have people with some food restrictions or just whatever the preference is. Obviously, main dining is always just a little bit more crowded. Yeah, I see that that first night is always just, they need to get into the groove.
Right.
Getting them into the groove, at least.
Yeah. And it's a whole new, I can't fathom what it must be like to be those serving teams that, you've got that turnover and the ship was full. They had signs up saying, the ship is full. There's no room upgrades to be had.
There's no room at the inn.
Yes. The inn is full and we've left port. I just can't imagine the skill it takes to be able to just quickly revamp from the people you spent 4 nights with to here's the people we're going to spend 3 nights with. It's just impressive.
What did Dad think of dinner?
He loved it. And again, 1923 has the smoked old fashioned. He ordered that, enjoyed it immensely. So is a strong contender on the food of the ships. I'd say it's probably our favorite restaurant between, we've only been on 2 so far, the Dream and the Wish. So I think 1923 has been my favorite between the 2 ships, just in terms of the atmosphere, the setting, the food, the menu. I could spend all day in there just looking at all the different historical pieces and artifacts and color palette. It's just amazing.
I don't think we've had anyone talk about 1923 and said it was a miss.
Right.
It is just the top tier standard for our rotational dining menus and environment. We all love it.
Definitely.
Well, after dinner, did we head to the theater for Seize the Adventure?
We did. We did go see Seize the Adventure. That was kind of my dad's first experience to get exposure to kind of what the Disney theater experience could be like. And he had a fun time. It was, it's fun. It's cheerful. It's just a great way to kick off a trip. I think they do a good job of taking kind of, aspects for that show in particular. You have kind of the aspects of the parade that they have at Walt Disney World. I feel like it's a good version of that to kind of have it on the ship. Here's a fun way to kind of kick this off. So everybody enjoyed it. Set for the next kind of 3 nights of what we were going to expect and get to do.
And does your son go to the show as well?
He does. He's in his school's chorus. So the singing, the songs, that's totally up his realm. And every time he takes a shower, he's got his playlist blaring. So after Encanto came out, that was kind of the go-to soundtrack that was running through the house all the time. So
I love that.
It's fun for him, as he sees some of, and it's seeing how they kind of do different variations of some of the songs or where they pull some things for some of the songs to do and blend the things. So he really enjoys it.
For a lot of people, that tends to wind down the evening. Did we get into anything else on your first day?
We did. We went to, my dad, wife, and I did the old-fashioned tasting at Hook's Barbery.
What did you think of that?
It was really good. My assumption going in is, okay, we're going to just have 4 different old fashions with kind of a slight variation of, here's this bourbon in it, here's this bourbon in it, here's this one with whiskey. The bartender used 4 different alcohols in making each one. So each one had a very different flavor profile. One of the ones that my wife and I both really liked, he actually made with mezcal and then a habaneros bitters. And with the habaneros bitters that he used, so there were 6 people in the class. He kind of made that one in a batch and he used 1 drop of the bitters for the 6 cocktails. And you could get not necessarily the heat of the pepper, but you could get kind of that warmth, smokiness from it. He kind of let us smell it. And when you smelled it from the bottle, you got hit full force. And he's like, well, how much do you think I put in these drinks? So people kind of guessed. And he was like, I did 1 drop for all 6. So that was interesting. And he had kind of his own cherry simple syrup that he used from the liquid from the maraschino cherries that they use for the old fashions. I think it was the Perfection 15 year. And then a chocolate bitters with the Johnny Walker Blue Label, which is a blended Scotch whiskey. That one was really good. I really enjoyed that one. So it was just interesting how he kind of used some different alcohols as the base. He did one that used a Zacapa rum, and then that one used a warm spice syrup, and then an allspice bitters. So that one was really kind of Christmas. That one was just kind of the essence of Christmas as a drink. But they were all very good. And so I did appreciate the fact that, it wasn't just kind of almost a repeat. Each one had its own very distinct flavor profile.
Yeah, another experience that we've heard nothing but positive things about recently.
I think his contract, he said, was about 7 months. And so he said, as they renew contracts, they kind of get assigned to different places on the ship. So he said, if you come back in a year, you may have a different bartender, and they get the flexibility of designing what they want to do per bartender. So he said, each experience you have will be different.
So do your kids, what did they do during this time? Were they in the cabin or were they?
That Friday night, our daughter was in the cabin. She was ready to wind down because I think our tasting was 9:00, I believe, or 9:30. It might even been 10. So she was kind of ready. When she gets tired, she's just like, I'm ready for bed. So my mom stayed with her.
I can relate.
Me too. So my mom stayed with her at our room. And then Logan, our 12-year-old, he went to go do the activities. So they had kind of the icebreakers, the meet the counselors. The first kind of heroes and villains was that Friday night. So he did that until midnight. So he came wandering in a little after midnight after kind of that first night.
And he enjoyed it.
He did. He was a little hesitant to go. And we had listened to one of the podcasts. I can't remember who the guest was, but her son had talked about it a little bit. That all 3 nights he went and just enjoyed it, had a good time. And so he was kind of, okay, I think I'm willing to try it. And he's very social. So I wasn't really worried about him not making friends. But it was like, I feel like if we didn't get in at the beginning of that first night, it'd be harder to come in. Once he woke up the next morning, we were like, how'd it go? He's like, oh yeah, I had a good time. So he would kind of pop in and out of Edge over the weekend to go check some things out. And then he also just kind of went and wanted to just kind of wander the ship and took pictures and checked out different things that he just wanted to kind of have his own time to go do. It was fun when we checked his phone after to kind of see what he went off to do, because he'd take pictures of different things. So it was fun to see that side of what he just wanted to do independently on his own. I don't think I would have done that as a 12-year-old. I would have been like, stick me in an activity with a video game. I'll just hang out here all day.
Did he ever hang out or run around with his sister? Did they ever do things together?
Not this time. She really got into the art activities in the kids club. So she really wanted to go back to do a lot of drawing. Since he is aged out, he would kind of go off and do his thing. And then she would go down and she wanted to go do all kinds of different art. So I know there was one time she was down there for something, the Black Panther came. And so it may have been in the app, but if it was, we didn't pay any attention to that. It was supposed to be because that wasn't what she was interested in at that moment. But they had brought plates out. And so the kids could get the Black Panther to autograph their just the plates, the paper plates that they use up on kind of quick service up on the pool deck. So we've got her plate with the Black Panther signature, and then she went and drew a little Black Panther logo on it. So I thought that was really a good move that they did, the kids that didn't come prepared with the autograph book. And this was kind of another thing for her, is she decided after we got to Orlando, I want to get autographs this time. And she really hasn't been interested in characters for a while, so she kind of wanted to at least get some signatures. So I think it was a good move, because I think I would have never heard the end of, you didn't give me my autograph book for the Black Panther. So it worked out. But that was kind of a little difference from their previous times, because before they've just been together pretty much the whole cruise. So they kind of adjusted to being a little bit more independent people than codependent on this sailing.
All right. Well, that sounds like a perfect place to take it into day 2, our Nassau day. Now, on these short cruises, you kind of have to make a decision on whether or not we're going to be getting off the ship or utilizing that time as a sea day. What did we get up to on your Nassau day?
So we've pretty much decided anytime we're on a Disney ship and we get into Nassau, we are going to be just staying on the Disney ship. So we hung out on the ship. We did the Aqua Mouse. We hung out at the pools a little bit. Went to 1923 for lunch. Enjoyed the drinks of the day. So we had just a great on-ship day. I got to meet Donald.
Very good. And did you go to the Hero Zone, to the bounce house race thing?
We didn't. We had every intention to do it. The kids loved it when we did it last January. And so they were all gung-ho. We were going to we've got to race again. We've got to see who the champion is. If you haven't been on a Disney ship, you're thinking, okay, you're on a ship. How many things can you do? There are so many different things. And if you're a Disney fan, there's lots of different things that are geared to Disney fans where you kind of have to sacrifice and say, this is really what we want to do. So
choices.
Yeah. So we just never aligned up. Like, we initially were going to go to the Hero Zone. And when we got over there, it hadn't officially opened yet. I don't know, there were probably 40 people in the stairwell waiting to get up to get in there. And so we're like, let's just go ahead and do the Aqua Mouse. Because we were like, we'll do Hero Zone and then we'll go do Aqua Mouse. And then we were just like, let's just pivot and go to the pools at Aqua Mouse. So that's what we went to go do.
What did we think of the Aqua Mouse?
It's fun. It's so cold. Like, it is as you start to go and it blasts you with that water spray, that is really cold. We enjoy the shorts. We've always said we'll go through this so we can see both versions of the shorts, but we typically only end up making it on one day to only see one version of the short. One day we will actually hit it on the right rhythm to at least see both of the shorts. So
what did we do for lunch on this day?
For lunch, we went to 1923.
How was that?
It was delicious. I think they had the muffaletta sandwich, so I enjoy the muffaletta sandwich. The big hit for my dad and daughter were the Mickey bars for dessert. They did that, and I got my 1923 lunchtime sundae with the dulce de leche ice cream in it. So I was very happy with my ice cream sundae. So that was a good lunch. After lunch, we kind of pivoted. They had the DVC member event over in the lounge. So we went over to that. That was a fun event. I think our previous sailings, we either missed it or they haven't brought it back yet. So some team trivia games to play. They had a shimmering blue drink. That was kind of the DVC welcome home. I think they called it the welcome home on the ship that you could go get at is it the Rose? Yeah. So they're like, oh, if you want to go order it again, you can go get it at the Rose. And it was fine. But I was like, what is this blue stuff going to do later? Like,
did they have a character at the end?
They did. Goofy came out.
Okay.
Yes. So Goofy's my wife's favorite character. So that was a big hit for her. They took time for everybody to get photos with Goofy as everybody cleared out. That was very enjoyable.
Did your family mostly stay together on this day, or was it kind of the kids went to the kids club and the Edge while you guys went and did things like this?
After lunch, our son went to go do a couple things at Edge. So I think he popped in for about an hour and then he kind of roamed the ship. And then our daughter, she went down to the kids club. There were like a few other like drawing activities that she wanted to do in there. So she went to go do that. And then the older one kind of went off on his own to adventure.
All right. Well, why don't we move it towards dinner? You should be at Worlds of Marvel this night?
That is correct. We are at Worlds of Marvel.
How was that dinner?
It was good.
What did Dad think of it? Because obviously there's the whole show and it's a little bit louder and involved.
My mom really enjoys the Marvel movies, so she really likes it. She, from when we were on the Wish, Worlds of Marvel is probably, I think it's her favorite one. She just loves seeing the characters, that atmosphere. And I think it reminds her of her dad. He was a big comic collector and into science fiction and all of that. So I think she has kind of that same love of science fiction. I have it too. So I think she just enjoys getting to see all that. Our daughter is a huge superhero fan. So it kind of alters between Spider-Man and Black Panther, who is her favorite. So she enjoys it. Our son recently, a few years ago, got into Marvel. So he just enjoys the movie aspect. So he kind of enjoys the sarcastic humor of Ant-Man. So that is all in his tween world of just perfect. So they all enjoyed it. And I enjoyed it as well. I get the pork loin. They have like the seasoned pork loin or pork chop, I guess. And I've enjoyed it. Like it's always come out really well prepared. I think they have the scallop dish. So my mom goes for the scallop dish. And my dad, I can't remember what my dad got that night. He would have got some kind of meat. He normally goes for some kind of beef meat entree. And then my wife she did one of the pastas and she enjoyed that. And then our daughter went for, chicken tenders and fries.
Nothing wrong with some chicken tendies.
Yeah.
Did we see, it should have been Little Mermaid that night?
Yes, we did go to Little Mermaid. So when we did our sailing on the Wish last January of 2023, we ran into a technical issue when Ursula comes out. So that had kind of got cut. And oh my goodness, that performer of Ursula just steals the show. I mean, just amazing caliber. I mean, she was just beyond fantastic. I mean, just incredible. So we enjoyed that immensely. So we've always sat on the deck 3 level of the theater. And so this time we sat on deck 4. And I kind of noticed more movement up on that deck than I've noticed before on deck 3. So I did notice that. So if you're a little worried about movement, I'd say head to deck 3. Pirate Parlay was that night also.
What did the family think of that?
Well, the grandparents decided that they were tired, so they didn't venture out for Pirate Parlay. For my wife and daughter, this was their first time to see it. The last time it was just my son and I that went up, and they just enjoyed it immensely. They just loved it. And when Jack comes out, I just love it. I even knew to expect it, but it's still just like when he pops out and just rappels down. I mean, it's just fun. The enthusiasm, the excitement, it's just fantastic. So everybody really enjoyed that. That was a great way to end the night.
Well, we've got one more full day, and it's a big one. It's your Castaway Key Day. What did we get up to on Disney's beautiful private island?
This was incredible. My son and I did the parasailing. Both of us, this was our first time to do any parasailing. We thought our son would be a little nervous about it, but he was not. He was ready to go. It's amazing. It's just fun. He was sure we got cheapened on our time. He's like, I think they let that other group go longer than this. I'm like, I'm pretty sure they know. And we all go about the same amount of time, but you're up there. And they talked about it on the boat. They're like, oh yeah, when you get up there, it's really quiet. I didn't really register that until you actually get up there. And then you kind of get over the thrill.
And then it was really quiet.
Like silent, just silent. And then, it's like you're taking in the view of the island and the boat. And it was fun. So that was great. We know we'll be doing it at least one other time because our daughter was not old enough to get to do it yet. So she was very upset that she got left out. And it's like, well, next time you'll get to do it. So we enjoyed that. Our daughter, she was all about sandcastle building. So she kind of found her spot on the beach, dug on the beach. For my parents, there was a day that I was compulsively checking the app and they had a Serenity Bay Cabana come open. So I got Serenity Bay Cabana for my parents. They enjoyed the cabana life. I snuck over at the end to go check it out a little bit so I could at least see it. It was fantastic. My mom enjoys the beach. My dad, because of the vision issues, waves can really disorient him. So that's kind of why we started him out on the 3-night cruise, is we were like, he doesn't normally get motion sickness, but it's like, what's going to happen when you're actually on a ship in the sea and there's not really land to have as a horizon. So he handled all that well. And then with how the cabanas are, they're set back a little bit so he could see, but he didn't have the wave motion, and the wave motion is what disorients him. They just enjoyed being able to have a comfy spot to enjoy the beach. They had the little golf cart that would come pick him up. And my mom was kind of embarrassed because she's like, I thought we were going to have to walk further. And then, he picks us up and then takes us down to this little spot to just drop us off. And then there was one time she's like, well, I was walking, and he was very offended that I was walking. And I was like, I didn't need to call you. I could walk this little bit just to get, because they were one of the closer cabanas to the restrooms and I can't remember what they call the adult dining in that little section. But, they weren't too far from there. So
what do they call that?
Serenity Bay Barbecue, I believe.
There you go. Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't want to commit it to memory since I didn't get to eat there. But it was the same food you get at Cookies. So it's not like it was a secret better menu. It was.
Well, they used to have steak. Do they not have steak anymore?
It's been a little while since I've been there, but yes, so every time I've been there, they've always had some sort of steak option.
Yeah, I had stopped by when they were at lunch, and so we kind of walked through. I didn't see anything but they might have just hidden it away. They might have known that I was just coming to interlope just temporarily, and they didn't want to make me stay. But I had my wristband. I could have still gone. But yeah, so that was great. As we talked about the twists in our day. So after we did parasailing, my son was like, yeah, I'm feeling kind of tired. So he went over to where we had our umbrellas over by the beach and then just passed out and slept for 2 hours. I was like, okay, not very normal, but you were up till past midnight the first night, and then we had parlay last night. So maybe it's just catching up to you. We timed it well, and the driver was very nice, and he let my son hitch a ride with my parents when they were ready to go back to the ship. So they just went back to the ship, and then that was great for them because from Serenity Bay, they just get the golf cart and take you right back, basically to get right on the ship. If you have family with mobility issues and you're thinking beach day terribleness, if you can get a Serenity Bay Cabana, it improves quality of life for them. So he hitched a ride and didn't have to walk to get back to the ship. Yeah. So then we kind of finish up the other three of us, my wife, daughter, and I kind of finish hanging out at the beach and then end up heading back to the ship probably 2:00-ish. And we thought, we'll rinse off and we'll go see if, what the Aquamouse looks like. And, we might do some stuff at the pool. But Aquamouse line was pretty long. So we're like, okay, we won't wait through that line right now. Ended up going back to the room. So our son was back in the room, still asleep. Okay. Are you doing okay? Yeah, I think I'm okay. So then we get closer to dinner time. So about 5:30, he's like, I think I need to go to the medical bay. I'm like, okay. In a very upset parent mode. We've asked you this all afternoon and you said you've been okay and you've just been tired. And now you're saying right before we're supposed to go eat dinner that we need to go to the medical bay. So we get over that and we make our way down to the medical bay. So they kind of check us in, and then the nurse comes in and says, okay, well, the doctor wanted me to kind of test for flu and strep. So if you haven't had the experience of being in the medical bay, it's very lovely on the Wish. We've been on it in a dream. We've now been able to be on 2 different ships and see both of the health centers on both ships. But, they're not really American doctors. They're typically from a European country. So the throat swab for the strep test was a little bit rougher than my son would have liked. So be prepared if you've ever got to get checked. So his strep comes back positive. So they had medication there. So we got the medication for him. And then he was like, well, I'll go to dinner for a little bit. And then he kind of started to not feel good during dinner. So he went back to the room. So that was kind of our big twist is, we managed to get strep throat in the midst of our sailing. So it was the last night, good or bad, I guess. So he got to enjoy pretty much all the trip before he started to feel totally miserable. So So that night would have been Aladdin. So he just hung out in the room. My mom and daughter went to go see Aladdin. My wife worked on packing up all of our stuff. And then my dad and I went to go do the reserve whiskey tasting at Hook's Barbery that night. So kudos to my wife for being willing to say, you go do this and I'll pack everything up, as we have a sick kid in the room with her too. So
how was the bourbon tasting?
That was fantastic. When it comes to my consumption of most food and drink, I wouldn't really say I have a overly sophisticated palate by any means. I enjoy good food. I can know if food tastes good, but I'm not going to get very detailed into critiquing the food. Oh, it's really good. I enjoy this. I'd eat it again. Or, oh, it was okay. I may or may not order. It was like, no, I want to read that. That's kind of my food metric. They offered things in that tasting that I probably would not go buy on my own and just be like, I don't really know if I would pay this much money for a bottle of alcohol. I'll drink it and I'll be like, yeah, it's alcohol. So I did appreciate how he selected the different whiskeys as part of that tasting and could share kind of some of the history and context of those different whiskeys, and then talked a little bit about, why you get certain kinds that, cost, they had the Johnny Walker Masters Ruby Reserve. That's this aged 40-year whiskey. And I want to say, I think he said, for a 1 ounce pour, it's like $2,300. And to his knowledge, the only time it's actually been purchased was on the Wish's maiden voyage. 2 shots were purchased on the maiden voyage. Some of them, like there was like some that they had, and we failed to ask him this question, but I mean, they had some that were Prohibition era whiskeys that had been made. And so, I mean, he would kind of open those up and let you kind of smell. And so there were some of the more high dollar ones that he would get down and let you smell. But that he was like, nope, it's staying closed. It's staying over. So it was interesting. There was one single malt Japanese whiskey that was part of it. There was a rye whiskey. There was Macallan rare cask blend that was part of that tasting. So they were very good. Depending on, your enjoyment of different kinds of spirits, you may not be as interested in that one, because with the old fashioned tasting, there's kind of the sweetener aspect of it. So it's not always just kind of the alcohol taste experience. So with this one, if you're more into kind of the distinct flavors that the spirits have, it may be worth your interest to go in and do that one. But if you're kind of not going to be as interested in more of just kind of the different variations of flavor between, one type of alcohol, I would probably look for one of the other tastings. Our previous, when we were on the Dream, we did the champagne tasting. I think we even did a beer tasting on that one. And, all the tasting we've done have always been really great.
All right. Well, did we get into anything else our last evening of the sailing?
No, we managed that. It was kind of like, all right, I've had 4 more shots of alcohol and we've got to get up to get to breakfast in the morning and get ready to drive home. So that was kind of the end note of the night.
So do you go to sit down breakfast on the last morning?
We do.
So for the listeners, breakfast on the last day, there's sort of 3 options. 1 is that you could just not have breakfast. 2 is that you could go to Marceline Market, Disney, or Cabanas, depending on the ship. Disney never advertises that breakfast. And then the 3rd option is the main dining room. Whatever dining room you spent your last meal at the night before is where you would go to breakfast. So Chris would go to Arendelle. But the main dining breakfast is at like 6:45 in the morning. Was it 6:45 in the morning?
I think we were 7.
The second dining is like at 8:15 or 8:30, something like that. So it's like a more civilized time to eat your breakfast and to be ready. So, all right, how was your last day's breakfast?
It was good. I mean, I feel like the menu doesn't vary. If you go to Marceline, you're probably going to get a very similar breakfast offering. We just always enjoy getting to see the servers one last time. So we enjoy that aspect of it really more than that's really why we do it. It's like we just like to see the servers one last time. And it's a little bit of a relaxing. I feel like it's a better way to start the drive home instead of feeling like going to the, buffet. And again, we don't really go to the buffet often. Castaway Key Day is the day that we will go to Marceline because we want to get off early to get onto the island. So, it always feels just rushed or busy. And you see people looking for tables. Okay, we better eat fast to free up space. So it helps to just get one last kind of calm vacation aspect before you have to actually get off the ship and be like, okay, vacation's over and now we have a drive. Yes. Oh, and one thing I failed to mention. So the Sunday that we had Castaway was Easter Sunday. And so they did have decorated kind of Easter eggs that they had on display in the Grand Hall. Probably where they have the Christmas tree is where they kind of had the eggs on display. And so they had a few 1923 themed eggs, a couple of Avengers themed, and then just some kind of Easter bunnies, ducks out there. And they also had some of those in the sweet shop. Those were really funny because there was one that was a really pretty egg that was kind of probably airbrushed with gold something to make it kind of reflect. And then there was another one that was a dinosaur. That was like eating little gummy bears. It was really funny. Yeah. And the little towel animal was a little Easter bunny kind of shape, like a little bunny laying down. And then they had little happy Easter chocolates on the bed. And I don't know where they were because I don't think they were there until Easter Day. So I don't know where they had been up until that point. Yeah. But that was a fun little surprise.
Very cool. Well, anything else to add before we kind of close this out here? Anything notable from disembarkation?
Disembarkation was really smooth. They were using the facial recognition, so that was super easy. We just grabbed the bags, and then they had two different lines. So if you've got an upcoming trip, you're debating, do we use the passports or just use our birth certificates? If you didn't have a passport, you still had to go through the customs line. So they had kind of a line set up saying birth certificates this way, and then passports over through this line. Held the little thing up, scanned your face, boom, you're good. Next person, boom, you're good. Boom, you're good. Boom, you're good. So that was super easy. I will give this shout out because this was a huge win for our 12-year-old. As we were on the ship, he sees somebody walking by, and they have the Chippendale popcorn bucket, the Easter Chippendale popcorn bucket from Disneyland, and his eyes just light up. And he's like, do you think they brought that from Disneyland? And I'm like, I'm pretty sure if you go to the Luna concessions that they will have it. And so he's, can I go? Because like we're getting ready to go have lunch. And I'm like, yeah, you can go. And so he darts off, and then in about 15 minutes, he comes back and he's got the Chippendale popcorn bucket. And then they also had the Donald Duck Easter egg sipper. So he was very excited. And then my wife was like, well, why did you get both? She's like, well, they told me it was $1.50 cheaper if I got both.
That's fun.
Yes. But he, like, ever since he saw the Chippendale Easter egg basket popcorn bucket at Disneyland, he was like, ooh, can we look for that one on eBay? And I was like, I don't know if we need to eBay it, but I was like, okay, you're on the ship. I'm pretty sure they've got it. Go for it. Go get that popcorn bucket. So
I don't think I've ever seen pictures of those. So you'll have to send them over.
Yeah.
Send them over with the show notes so we can all look at them in the show notes.
Yes. So that was, we did hit a movie while we were there. We went to go see the Marvels. So we typically try to find time to hit one of the movie theaters to just relax and, enjoy what's on. So
I really love those movie theaters. They're so well themed.
They're very cute. I mean, I don't think I've ever, I know I haven't seen a movie in them, but I've looked at them and they're cute.
Well, Chris, that about takes us to the end of our show. Before we take it out here, what is next for you?
All right. Well, so as I mentioned earlier, my parents are turning 70 this year. One of our bucket list adventures we're going to go do is we are setting sail for Alaska at the end of July.
Yay!
So, and that one will be via Celebrity. So I was really excited when I listened to the podcast you did with the outgoing Celebrity CEO. I'm still mixed about missing that Disney experience, but I'm like, Alaska's what we're really going for. So I think it'll be okay. But
it'll be okay. Celebrity's fantastic.
Yeah. So we're very excited about that. We have a very merry time on the Fantasy over Christmas in December. And then that one will be quite an adventure because we're bringing like all of my extended family. So it'll be my parents, my family of 4, my sister, my niece, and then my nephew's getting married in a few weeks. So it'll be my nephew and his wife. So we're going for a big family cruising Christmas. So we'll see how that goes. And then we've also got for spring break 2025, we are booked on the Treasure.
Yay!
Very exciting.
Yes. So that's kind of why we gave up the annual pass.
I think that's with good reason.
I was like, we've got a few big trips coming up. Like we may not be able to get down to Walt Disney World quite as much as we were planning to since we've got these fun cruises coming up. So we're definitely excited. So you can tell we caught the cruise bug pretty easily.
Not a hard one to catch. Well, Chris, that is going to wrap up our show here. Thank you so much again for coming on and sharing your and your family's 3-day sailing on the Disney Wish. We hope you guys have a great sailing in Alaska. We all love Alaska, and we will hear from you again soon.
All right. Thank you so much.
And thank you for your continued support for our Patreon program as well. So it's been very appreciated. So thank you very much.
Oh, yes. Well, and that's how we discovered the podcast is like, I didn't really even like dive into any of it until after we did that Sailing on the Dream. And then we had such a good time. And then my son was like, hey, I found this podcast we could listen to. And then
thank your son for sure.
Yeah, you're in our morning rotation. Like I take him to school every day and we rotate through our podcast to fill up our school trip. So we enjoy it.
We love to hear when the podcast is a family affair for sure. Chris, thank you again so much for coming on. But that is going to do it for this episode of the DCL podcast. And we will see you next time. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thanks.
Well, that's going to wrap up our show. Once again, we want to thank Chris for coming on and sharing his and his family's adventure aboard the Disney Wish. If you're enjoying the show, we greatly appreciate you leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We would also like to thank our Patreons who help make this show happen each and every week for us. You too can help support the show by joining our community at patreon.com/DCL Podcast. Whether you're boarding a cruise, enjoying a trip to the parks, or adventuring outside of Disney, on behalf of myself, Christy, and Steve, we want to wish you smooth sailing and safe travels. And we'll see you next time on the DCL Podcast.
The DCL Podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.